Hello and welcome. So we were talking about fats. We were talking about fats, and in fats we saw that we have saturated fat. It has been classified that we have saturated fat that we have seen. Just a quick recap that we have saturated fat and unsaturated fat. And based on this, the entire balanced diet, the entire food preferences, etc., are set. Diseases are based on this. So you have, when you get the information, you will get whether you are you should go for saturated fats or unsaturated fat. Now, if you can recall, I told you a trick to remember. Whenever you see the word saturated, associate it with animals. Animals. So, for example, ghee, cheese, etc. They are saturated fat because we derive the saturated fats from animal. They are mostly they are from animal origin. On the other hand, unsaturated fats are usually plant based. Remember, we use the word usually, about, etc. We do not make abstract statements. So these are usually plant based. For example, mustard oil, and in recent, I would say recent in the terms, I mean around 5 to 6 years, olive oil, olive oil has seen has seen a good consumption in Indian household as well. So mustard oil, olive oil, vegetable oil, etc. These are your unsaturated fats. Now, talking about more about these saturated fats, you would know that if you compare the price of, let's say, ghee with a mustard oil, and you would realize that this is costly. This is costly. This comparatively is very, very cheap. A good quantity, any branded ghee would cost you around, if you take the average, it will be around 1500. Let's say it varies from 600, 700, and goes to 3000. And it is, if you take the average, around 120, let's say. So these are very costly. But we have also seen that anything that you make in saturated oils or saturated fats, anything that you make in saturated fat has certain properties because of which it makes it costly. First thing, these give you high energy. Second, usually they are tasty. A normal paratha which is made in soya oil or etc., and another paratha which is made in ghee, preferably will be tastier. And the third thing that you should know, and rather it is important for us to know, is that the saturated fat, anything that you make in saturated fat, usually have longer shelf life. Shelf life इनकी ज़्यादा होती है. They have longer shelf life. That means if you make something in saturated fat, they will remain as it is for longer period of time. For example, you make desi ghee laddus, and provided you are taking general care of the product, so this will remain good for, let's say, 30 days. On the other hand, if you see the unsaturated fat that I have told you just in here, the unsaturated ones, these one, mustard oil, olive oil, etc. If you make paratha in this, they will no longer be in good condition, maybe around 1 day or 2 day. So this is known as shelf life. Shelf life. This is important. Now, taking two very important factors, that is, they are tasty and they have longer shelf life. We have certain products. For example, biscuits, biscuits, and then namkeen, chips. Ideally, these products, if you want to increase the shelf life, first point, pay very close attention. Why we are talking about this? Because there is something which is known as, India is going through something which is known as obesity time bomb. Obesity time bomb. So we are very concerned, not only we, even Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, that we'll talk about in a moment, they are also very concerned related to these things, because these are eaten and are available in every, in every 10 step there will be a shop where you can find these. So to increase the shelf life of these products, biscuits, namkeen, mixture, etc., chips, etc., ideally they should be made in saturated fat. Why? Because it will make it tastier. The shelf life will be longer. But now imagine a chips which gives you a ghee flavored. I think you may not have eaten a chips which is ghee flavored. For example, Maggie, etc. Now, to in so basically, what rule says, use saturated fat. Use saturated fat to make these. Why we are using saturated fat? It will make it tasty. It will increase the shelf life. But we have also seen that these are saturated fats are costly. So what companies are doing, instead of saturated fat, they switched to something which is of very important for prelims and mains examination, known as palm oil. Palm oil. And palm oil, and we have seen a quick recap. It is very important that we have very high dependency. We have very high dependency of edible oil. I would say edible oil on other countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, etc. And we around, I would say 80 to 90% of the edible oil are imported in India. So government wants to reduce this, the dependency on other nation. We means the government wants to reduce this import dependency. So what we are doing, we are promoting the cultivation of palm oil in India. But there is an issue with it, and that issue is this particular palm oil tree, biologically, it is not only one of the, biologically, it is the most efficient one. Now, what do you mean by efficient one? That means, suppose this is an area of 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers, and you have planted a tree that gives you oil. Suppose you have planted mustard plants, crop, and you have planted palm trees. Palm tree will give you more, in fact, many times more oil compared to mustard oil. That is known as, biologically, it is more efficient. So, what they are doing, what we are trying to do is trying to reduce this dependency, because uh, every nation should be self-sufficient in food security, affordability, accessibility, etc. So, but the challenge with palm oil is that it needs a particular kind of environment, and which is somewhat tropical, etc. In India, we have only two areas, and that is northeast, and Western Ghats, And if you know these two, comes under, there is something which is known as biodiversity hotspot. Biodiversity hotspot, if you do not know, let me just give you a small introduction to biodiversity hotspot. These are the area, these are the land which are under threat. Ecologically, these are under threat because of any reason, deforestation, urbanization, etc., pollution, etc. But they have certain species of animal, plant, etc., which are found only in this particular area. So if you lose the biodiversity hotspot, you will lose all the species also. So globally, there are several biodiversity hotspots. As the word indicates itself, biodiversity hotspot, that these should be preserved. Okay. Now, moving forward, if you see the concept that we have made so far, so there is a new term. Let's introduce is LDL and HDL. This is low density lipoprotein. And this is high density lipoprotein. So what happens whenever you consume food, fat, etc.? This low density and high density lipoproteins are produced. So saturated fat contains LDL. And unsaturated one contains HDL. So you may have seen people suggesting do not consume too much of ghee, etc. It will make you gain weight. So the basic information behind that is these two actually clogs your arteries. So artery, I'll show you some images as well. Arteries are, we have certain arteries, and as soon as you consume saturated fat, etc., they get deposited. They get deposited in the artery. Now when they get deposited, they mark a very, I would say, a risky point. It is said it is marker, because in here, blood, when it flows, it will feel the pressure because the area has been reduced. So what will happen? It will cause pressure in this area. We have done this, using hose pipe. If you keep reducing the area from which the water is coming out, the pressure increases. So it will cause increased blood pressure and eventually will cause heart disease. Okay, so this particular point is very important. Now, what happens whenever you consume the saturated fat, etc.? There is another term. So these are the let's combine LDL and HDL in one. These are produced, and I'll come to HDL in a moment. So what happens? So another word that you may have heard is cholesterol. Cholesterol is nothing but a waxy, sticky. It's a waxy, sticky substance that is produced whenever we eat fat, etc. So these gets deposited. And what HDL does, it takes these from our arteries and deposit it in liver. This is very important for you to understand. So cholesterol is nothing but waxy, sticky substance that your body needs. And this presence of cholesterol is required by the body. It is important that we have cholesterol, limited amount of cholesterol. Why? Because it helps in production of vitamin D. And the next class, which is we will talk about cell in detail. Every cell, there are certain small organelles. And in organelles, and the cell itself, suppose this is the cell and these are small, you must have heard of a term mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. That is a organelle that is present inside the cell. So, like mitochondria, there are several other organelles as well. We'll talk about everyone. So, these are actually covered, like a polythene, they are covered. And this polythene, the cover is known as membrane. So, cholesterol is important for the formation of membranes also. So, we actually need. So, body needs a limited amount of cholesterol for a specific purpose. For our examination purpose, we should know that for the synthesis of vitamin D, one step requires that cholesterol should be present and the membrane formation. So, there is a term which is known as membrane. Now, see how the words are complicated, but their meaning are very simple. For example, membrane biogenesis. Genesis. It's a biological word, may appear very complex, but the simple meaning of membrane biogenesis is the formation of membrane. As you can see, biogenesis, we are generating something. And what is a membrane? Membrane is nothing, it's a covering. Like you purchase something and you carry in a polythene, a bag, etc. So that is a covering, like this shirt is covering my body. In the exact same way, there are small components like mitochondria, you must have heard, it is covered in a membrane. So for that, this cholesterol is important, but in limited quantity. Now, let's talk about this. This is a gland. We'll talk about glands also in endocrine system. So what this does, it get rid of the excess cholesterol, whatever it has accumulated over the time in various forms. That is not of our concern. How it depends upon the body composition, etc. And it will eventually get rid. But remember, too much of fat, if it is getting accumulated in here, if it is accumulated in here, what will happen, that it will lead to over deposition of fat and will cause disease like fatty liver, etc. So this part is very important for you to understand. And there is something also that suppose you have eaten something, So what we have covered so far, there are some important keywords. Let's highlight those keywords first. And I will talk about these two. These all points is LDL and SDL. And since these are two types, we will also differentiate between these two. As of now, just know these terms. LDL, low density lipoprotein, high density lipoprotein. We'll also see bad fat, good fat. And the second one that we have seen is a cholesterol. This is the second keyword. So you must have heard of this term cholesterol. Now another one that you must have heard is our third term is triglycerides. Triglycerides. So see, what we'll do, we'll try to understand every term. See, if you go out in the market, you will get volumes and books and research paper written entirely on these topics, triglycerides, cholesterol, etc. But we do not, need that much of information. What we need is the simplest, understandable form. So whenever we eat something, let's say we have just had our lunch, and why we are consuming lunch, etc., because it gives us energy. And everything has a unit. Energy has a unit of calorie. So if there is excess of calorie, if there is excess means something which is not being used, or maybe it will be used later on, it will remain in your blood in the form of triglycerides. So these are nothing but fat in the form of energy, fat in the form of energy floating in the blood in the form of triglycerides. Now imagine, okay, let's make it very simple. This is a glass of water, and we all know about this, which is filled with water. Now, what will happen if you add oil to it? The oil will float on the surface. So, same thing happens. Our blood, in our blood, what happens? The entire blood consists of various components, various components. In fact, you will be surprised that half of the blood content, if you talk about blood content, and it is very important because tomorrow there could be a prelims question, which one of the following is not present in blood? So in blood, there is certain, we'll again come to this topic in our circulatory system. There is something which is known as plasma, and then certain cells that we'll talk about later on. This plasma is almost colorless. It is a very light yellow in color. So this plasma contains this oil droplets, and this travels with the blood throughout our body. Now imagine it reaches to heart. It reaches to heart with a very high amount of triglyceride. If it is in limited quantity, that's of no issue. But if it is in large quantity and it reaches heart, obviously, remember every blood that is flowing through our body eventually passes through heart, because heart is a pumping station. It has nothing to do with generation. And remember, heart is a pumping station. Heart does not cleans blood. It cannot clean blood. It has nothing, and you'll be surprised. And I'll keep this topic interesting. So as of now, just remember, heart does not purify your blood. हार्ट में ब्लड प्यूरिफाई नहीं होता है. हार्ट आपका सिर्फ एक पंप है. It is just a pump which keeps on pumping whatever comes in. It pushes to different directions. How purification is done? That means a blood which is very rich in carbon dioxide, that we'll see in later classes. And again, that will be again very, I'll show you the videos and images so that you get the entire image also, what is happening inside our body. So when it reaches to your heart attack, and if the triglyceride is very high, it can cause heart attack. There's a blockage, it will cause blockage, and it causes problem. So this is another word that we have just understood, is triglyceride. Now, so there was a problem that we were discussing about. Suppose you are owner of a business firm which makes chips, biscuits, namkeen, haldiram, bhujia, etc. Now you own the business, you want to increase the shelf life, you want to make your product tastier, but the challenge is the oil that you are using is very costly. Obviously, you will go for something which is cheaper. And this is what is being used. It is widely used, and it is not good for our health. So this is another a very good insight and good question could be, if it is not good, why government of India is getting subsidies? Why India's government of India is talking about, our northeast people to grow palm oil? So I'll come to that in a moment. Just finish this. So what happens in this is, this is the blockage that I was talking about. If you see this, this is the blockage that has been created. This is blood. As you can see, these are the cells that I have talked about. These are the cells that are traveling, and eventually if this keeps on increasing, it will create a blockage. Okay, and when the area of passing blood is less, the increase, the flow, the speed will rise, and it will cause high blood pressure. And talking about the normal ones, again, just give me a moment. So what we have done, we have used a method so that, now put yourself in the place where, you want to use saturated fat, but it is very costly. And the end result that you want is unsaturated fat of anything, but the result should be economically friendly. सस्ता होना चाहिए. So what we do, we change the saturated fat to unsaturated fat. What we do, we change the saturated fat to unsaturated fat, so that our cost of production drops down. Okay. This is very important concept for you to understand. Okay. So before moving in this part, there was one thing that I said I'll discuss is the LDL, and HDL. Now HDL, what actually HDL does? HDL is responsible for taking these, which are also known as, let me give you the actual name of the deposit. It is known as plaque. PLAQUE. The deposits that are found because of the LDL. LDL is also known as bad fat. Bad fat. And HDL is good fat. Now, why we know that this is bad fat? Because it get deposited in the arteries. Arteries are vessels that carry blood. And why it is good fat? Because it is the HDL. It is the HDL which takes the plaque. It takes the plaque and transfer it to liver, so that our artery remains clean. Now you'll be surprised to know, let me tell you something very, very fascinating. What is happening right now is, suppose there is a person who is diagnosed with high amount of, blockage. When we say that कि blockage बहुत है, 70% blockage है, 80% blockage है, that means this area is getting reduced because of the food habits of that person. Now what we are doing, you must have heard of a name called as nanotechnology. What nanotechnology means, something which is of a very small scale, a dimension of physics. So in technology part, we'll cover that also. What we are now doing, instead of food dependency, medical dependency, what we are doing, we are using robotics. Now see, imagine if you take a capsule. As soon as you take the capsule with the water, it gets dissolved in your stomach, and the outer covering of the capsule is broken, and from the capsule, robots will come out. Those robots are of nano range. Nano range means it is even thinner than a paper, like this one, even thinner than this paper. Thinner means if you slice this into two parts, not this way, this way. That means if you peel off two parts and keep doing it 70,000 times, you will reach the scale which is known as nano range. Very small, it is not visible to our eyes. It is, the dimension is 10 to the power minus 9 meters. So imagine a small robot comes out and start moving in our body. Obviously, the capsule, when it is broken, the content of the capsule will be absorbed by the blood, and the small robots, which are also called as nanobots, so they will start moving in our blood circulation, etc. And eventually they are programmed in a way that as soon as they reach here and detect the plaque, the actual drilling that you may have seen in the construction areas, etc., the actual drilling, they will start drilling this part. They will start drilling this part. And eventually it will take hardly some hours, and they will clear this entire plaque. So again, it is something which is under clinical trial. We have to see. As of now, we are taking medicine, etc., stent, etc. So in coming days, maybe 4 to 5 years, as different robotics, AI, etc., is developing very exponentially, everything is going to change, even the medical industry also. So again, coming back in here, so HDL, it is known as good fat. This is known as good fat. Why? Because it takes the plaque, that is LDL, and deposit in the liver. Now, again, so that was the LDL, cholesterol, HDL, triglyceride, etc. Now, coming back to this part, saturated fat and unsaturated fat, and unsaturated fat. Okay. Now, if you do not know, let me tell you a few terminology that you should know. Whenever there is a food article which is exposed in the air and we say कि ये खराब हो गया है, it is it cannot be eaten now. Actually, the reason the chemical reaction has happened, the atmospheric oxygen, the oxygen which is present in atmosphere, has reacted with it, and the process is known as oxidation. So we will say that oxidation has happened. This is the one way of saying this. The another way of saying the same thing is this product has oxidized. Has oxidized. And that is why it cannot be consumed. So if adding of oxygen is known as oxidation, what would you call adding of hydrogen? Hydrogen, oxygen, these are elements which are present in the atmosphere. So if you add, let's say you are purposefully adding hydrogen, if it is not in the atmosphere, in the lab or maybe in the setup, what you are doing, you are adding hydrogen to a particular food. Obviously, it will cause hydrogenation. Hydrogenation. In the same way, if you add nitrogen, it will be called nitrification, isn't it? So what we can do for our this requirement, what we do, we perform hydrogenation. Okay, so for this we do hydrogenation. This is very important for us to know. Now, the hydrogenation process, when we do in this particular part, is a classic method, trivial method. And what we want to do, that we have seen that now this is not followed. It was used to follow very early when we started learning how this can be done, etc. Now, what we do, we have this unsaturated fat with us. It is cheap. Now, pay very attention or you might lose the entire point. This is cheap. Available, let's say, 100 rupees per liter. And we have also seen ghee, etc. Average, let's say, let's take 1500 rupees per liter. Okay. So what we are going to do, either you can go from saturated fat and make that, or you can also, that will be very complex process, but it is done. In some cases, now it is not done. What we can do is reverse the process. Reverse the process. Using unsaturated fat, make it saturated fat. The cost will be low. Obviously, we have also seen, remember, we have also talked about catalyst. A quick recap, catalyst is anything. It could be anything. It could be a chemical. It could be a particular room temperature. It could be humidity, etc. Catalyst is something that increases the speed of a reaction. In this particular process, very important for you to know, you can really write it down. Platinum oxide, PtO2, is used as a catalyst. In which process? Let's use a fresh board to understand the unsaturated fat, and all the information that we have studied will now come handy, is changed to saturated fat, because we are not in a position to invest 2000 rupees for oil. So unsaturated to saturated with the help of PtO2, platinum oxide. It has been asked in I think EPFO or some examination where this particular uh, catalyst is used. The name of this catalyst is Adams catalyst. Adams catalyst. So from unsaturated to saturated. Now we'll start the very basic concept. Unsaturation means it signifies that there is something that this particular compound, any compound which is unsaturated, we can say the word itself is, showing that this is unsatisfied, unsatisfied, unsaturated, unsatisfied. Whereas saturated means it is full, it is, has got everything, satisfied. In chemistry, when we say this is unsatisfied and that is satisfied, that means this is unsatisfied in terms of the bonds it has to make. It has to make 4 bonds and only 3 bonds have been made. That means it is unsatisfied because one bond still has to be made. And for making that bond, what we add is known as hydrogen element. And as soon as you add the hydrogen to unsaturated fat, it will be converted into saturated fat. So we got the saturated fat, but we have to perform a particular reaction. And we have just discussed that if you add hydrogen to a particular process, that process is known as hydrogenation. Hydrogenation. That means if tomorrow there is a question, which one of the following reaction is used to change from unsaturated to saturated fat, etc., the answer is hydrogenation. Because if you add hydrogen, a single bond will be created, the unsaturation will be gone. And what will be formed in here, let's delete this satisfied word. Now what will be formed in here will be solid oil, which is also known as vanaspati. You must have heard of this term. Like for example, dalda, that is now no longer available. In fact, once I visited Mumbai and I had a class, and from the hotel where I was staying, and in the road, I saw a very old building, and there were various designs, etc., of this structure, of this structure, of this structure. And they were all getting, broken. So, but the structure was very large, the area was very large, and the rust obviously has taken over all of the instrument, etc. And I asked the cab driver, what is this? And he said, sir, this is the Dalda factory, the first Dalda factory of India, or maybe the only Dalda factory. And from here, all the Dalda were supplied. So in 70s and 80s, it was the Dalda which was used. And now it is available in the market, but at that time, this was the only oil that was available, and it was not good for our health. Vanaspati, dalda, etc. is not good. Now, before moving on, so this is the process that is being done by industries. So Lay's company, Haldiram, etc. So if you want to make The unsaturated, let's recap quickly because this is very important concept. To make unsaturated fat to saturated fat, that process has to undergo, then the name of that process is hydrogenation. What we are doing, we are adding hydrogen to unsaturated fat. Why? Because unsaturated, it is called unsaturated. The only reason is because they have at least one double bond, at least one double bond, double bond. And that is why they are called saturated. And in here there will be you can say with confidence that no double bond is there. Because see, in chemistry, in biology, etc., double bond and triple bond signifies a kind of unsatisfaction, a kind of unsaturation. Because a double bond signifies that you are actually making a compromise in the bond formation. So what we have done that a double bond. Now listen to this part very carefully. It is a basic chemistry, but it is the concept that is used in advanced biochemistry as well. A double bond can be changed to a single bond if you provide, for our purpose, if you provide hydrogen to it. The double bond will change into single bond. And this is the same concept is being used in here, where unsaturated fat, which has at least one double bond, that double bond is changed into saturated fat where no double bond is present with the process known as hydrogenation. PTO2, PT is a platinum oxide is used as a catalyst, and this catalyst is also known as Adams catalyst. Okay, so have a good view of whatever we have covered. And okay, and before moving forward, I will tell you just one thing. Suppose this is a compound, just for our understanding. Okay, I'm not drawing all the four bonds, etc. Now let's say this is hydrogen and this is CH3. This is hydrogen, or let's say this is CH3 and this is hydrogen. Okay, no, nothing special about it. It's a normal compound. As you can see, CH3, hydrogen, CH3, hydrogen, there is a carbon. Another compound, let's talk about it. Remember, the structure of a particular compound determines its property. And to make you understand it better, there is no difference between the graphite which is being used in the pencil that can be easily broken. You can break the graphite, you can even break the pencil. There is no difference between a graphite and a diamond. The hardest known, and I'll break this myth also, diamond is not the hardest known material to humankind. There is something else, and we'll cover that in allotropes. In fact, we'll begin our the allotropes will be, yes, nanotechnology. In nanotechnology, we'll begin our discussion with the allotropes, where we'll understand why these both are made up of carbon, then why graphite can be easily broken down even by a 6-year-old kid, but diamond is the hardest known material to humankind. It is only because of how the carbon and its bonds are arranged, etc. During COVID time also, to get rid of the COVID novel coronavirus, which several countries are doing their own research, in India also, ICMR, and several Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and several labs, government labs, private labs, etc. What they were looking for is what is the structure of that particular virus, because corresponding to that particular structure, we will design a particular drug. Because in chemistry, the structure is very important. Remember that. To give you another example that we'll cover in a moment when we cover water, just to make it significant in here, that we know that water is in this form, and it makes all the difference. It is a universal solvent. Why? Because it's a structure. It is the structure which matters. It's the structure which matters. Now again coming back to this one. So this that we have drawn is a compound. Now pay very close attention and tell me, this is another one. Same thing, nothing new is there. CH3. There are two CH3 in here and two hydrogen. This is two CH3 and two hydrogen. Can we say that there is difference in them? In chemical formula, the chemical formula, that means the chemical formula of salt is NaCl, of hydrochloride is, of HCl is, of sodium chloride is NaCl, of hydrochloric acid is HCl. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about, is there any difference between these two? When you can see that this, in this particular compound, the CH3 are on the same side, but in this CH3, these are on opposite side. So in here, it is on opposite side, and opposite side, and in here on same side. It is very important for you to know, because this is one of the concepts which is being taught to science student in class 11, 12th, first year, second year, third year. So in here, it is on opposite side, it is on opposite side, and it is in same side. Okay. So you can also write down this information and keep drawing. Remember, whatever is drawn in the board, you are supposed to write down in your, maybe in the running handwriting, etc. The important thing is that in exams, it is the applied information which is asked, and sometimes this information are also asked. It is a little bit of advanced chemistry, but as I said, I'll make everything very simple. This is CH3. This is CH3 on the opposite side. I may be repeating this information again and again just to make sure you know this, just to make sure you know this, because when these compound, this in here it is in opposite side, this is known as trans. When these are on same side, we say this is cis structure. Okay. So when in place of CH3, you could have placed anything. But when you observe it, if it is on opposite side, there could be multiple chains. I'll show you some images as well. But as of now, just focus on whatever I am showing you and teaching you. That CH3 are on opposite side, we'll say that this is a trans one. And this is a cis one. These are chemical names. So in the process of hydrogenation also, because we have seen, because let me tell you again, that fats are nothing but compound of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, etc. For our understanding, this thing is important, that relative to carbohydrates and other nutrients, the oxygen is less. Okay. So in here, there will be chains of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, etc. And at one point, there will be a structure, where, see, there is nothing else, only carbon, hydrogen is present. There will be one point where these will be on opposite side. It is fat, but the structure is trans. This is known as trans fat. This is known as trans fat. First, we'll understand what is trans fat, and then we'll talk about whether it is good for our health or not. What are the programs, policy, etc., which is being initiated by Government of India globally? What is being done? Because on prima facie, trans fat, I mean, a general rule of thumb, trans fat is not good for us. So this chemically is trans fat. Now we'll try to understand. Now we'll try to understand through images. There are certain images also. See in here, this is unsaturated one. Okay. So as I have told you that in unsaturated one, ignore the red one for a moment. Okay. The focus on this part. In unsaturated, there must be at least one double bond. Here is a double bond. In saturated one, there will not be any double or triple bond. This is saturated one. In this process of hydrogenation, that means we are adding hydrogen. What happens, as you can see, these two hydrogen are on same side. This is known as cis fat. And in this process of hydrogenation, you will also see there are some structures where hydrogens are on other side. That means trans. And since these are fats using catalyst, you know the catalyst, Adams catalyst, this is known as trans fat. This is known as trans fat. Okay. Now some, according to the previous year questions, etc., which can be asked, let's talk about trans fats. That okay, so this is the basic chemistry. So now let's talk about trans fat. Usually it is found in the fat of large animals. There are certain countries which consume meat of large animals. For example, we have talked about Germany. We have talked about several African countries where the fat of large animal is consumed. So fats of large animals, beef, etc. In that, trans fat is found. A small quantity of trans fat is a very important line. Of trans fat is also found in milk. One of the very important line that you should write down, that a small amount of trans fat is also found, because tomorrow there could be a question with reference to when the examination are conducted, there are rarely any small topics that they want to leave. What they want to do is to make sure the aspirant knows everything. So sometimes what they do is whatever we have covered so far, they will amalgamate, they will combine all the information and throw you as a question. For example, with reference to saturated and unsaturated fats, consider the following statements. First off, there could be 7 statements, 6 statements, and you will be asked which are true, which are not true, correct or incorrect. There could be statement, all the unsaturated fats have at least one double bond. Yes, this is true. All the saturated fats have single bond. Even though these two are very extreme statements, but these two are correct. A little amount of so what actually happens, that you have all the knowledge, but the weakest point where you get stuck is this point, that there will be a statement that okay, so trans fat can be found in the meat fat or meat of large animals. Yes, this is true. But if there is a statement that says a small amount of trans fat is also found in milk, here is the point where I have seen most of the students, when I conduct mock test, etc., they mark it wrong. This is the point where you will see that a student will stuck in here, even though they know everything. Now, based on this information, see how you can solve the problems which even a person from the biology or maybe zoology science background get stuck is, if I say that trans fats are naturally found, and I'll give you just 30 seconds to tell me whether this statement is correct or not. Trans fats are naturally found. Okay, so let's solve a question here itself. So there is a statement which says, with reference to trans fats, which one of the statement with reference to trans fat, the question is, with reference to trans fat, consider the following statements, and the statements are, they are naturally found, they are found in meat or fat of large animals. A small amount of trans fat is also found in milk. Now, this is a kind of very uh, dubious statement that is not making any harsh claim. It is just asking you a small amount is present. And then it is also artificially made. Here, the question will challenge the grid of whatever information that you have collected so far on the trans fat. But it is one of the easiest questions. If it is present on the animals, it is naturally found. Yes, this is correct. We have not made the horse, we have not made the buffalo, etc. So yes, it is naturally found. Since we have seen it, we have written it. And it is true. It is not found in the small animals, etc., chicken, etc. But yes, and whether it is artificially made, we have just made it. We have just made. Remember the process? Remember the process? Hydrogenation, where we reverse the process. So we have made it using Adams catalyst. This is done in lab. That means this one. That means yes, it is artificially made also using Adams catalyst, etc. This is the applied part of your information. So facts are facts will be asked, because in everyday science, etc., there are facts. Apart from facts, there are rarely few things, and those things like this one, I'll explain in the class. So as you can see, artificially made, small amount of trans fat is also found in milk. So this is your trans fat. Very important one that we have solved just now. So you may ask why this happened, that this structure is found, this, why this has happened, that a small part has gone through this where trans and cis has made. It is because of usually our aim was to, using the catalyst, change all the unsaturated to saturated for the sake of cost. But in between these two, cis fat and trans fats are also getting made. What is cis? Just the structural setup. What is trans? Again, the structural setup. In trans, the hydrogen is on opposite side, and in cis on the same side. Now, in this particular process, we are making it by our choice. That means artificially. So why this is being made? Why not all the fat has been transferred to saturated one? It is because of incomplete hydrogenation, because chemistry is full of exceptions. So this is because of trans fat basically are formed because of incomplete hydrogenation. So see, I always maintain, I always say, and I always believe that things are not very tough, to be honest. things are very not tough if you pay very close attention. With this much of information, you can solve at least 20 questions that can be asked on saturated fat, etc. Because remember, in none of the examination, you will find which one of the following is a saturated fat. Those type of question were asked in early 2000. So this type of question will not be asked, but whatever you have studied in this part, the applied part of this information will definitely be asked. So this was about your fat. Moving on, moving on to our next. See, we have talked about the important nutrients, carbohydrate that we have completed, protein we have completed, but remember, protein will come again and again. In fact, we have created a small base to understand one of the very widely asked topic in every examination, that is biotechnology. So this information again will come, but for in nutrition we have covered more than extra, and then we have covered fat. So this much is enough for us. Okay, now let's talk about another one, water. But before moving on to discuss the role of water in the nutrition, I would ask a question and I'll uh, let you think over it. There is a person who has been hanged upside down. उल्टा लटका दिया गया है इसको. This person has been done upside down. The question is, if this person is given something to eat, whether the process of digestion will happen or not. Okay? So yes, gravity so the first thing that would come to your mind is gravity. That no, as soon as you feed that person, the food will fall down. But had that been the answer, I wouldn't have asked this particular question. The question is, a person is hanged upside down and this person is given food, whether the process of digestion will happen or not. Okay, now coming back to water. Now remember, water does not have any calorific value. And I would suggest to keep writing running notes so that when you visit your notes again, everything gets recalled. So when I say water does not, or anything does not have a calorific value, that means, or have calorific value, that means I am going to explain what is calorific value. Anything that gives you energy. Anything that gives you energy. This energy has a unit, calorie. In physics, we also use joules, megajoules, etc. But in physics, in here we'll talk about calorie because we are talking about food. So in food, if you say something which gives you energy, that means it gives you, I can say it gives you calorie also. So we can and suppose I ask you how much calories been given. Let's say a particular piece of burger is giving you 200 calories. Just an example. So the calorific value of a burger will become 200. So when I say water does not have any calorific value, that means water does not give you energy. Calorific value of water is 0 in capital. Remember this fact. Remember this fact. Calorific value of water is 0. Okay. And you may ask, there would be several questions that you may ask. So what about the What about the oils that we use in our home? Oils that we use in our home, is whether that is good or not? That is good or not? The answer to this, to that, this is the again same thing. I'll share this also. And about the mains question that I wanted to share with you, what I have done, I have added some more information so that you can write better. See, writing answer, attempting mock test, attempting question, etc., is not come out of this illusion. If you are, now listen to this very carefully, if you are attempting questions, you are writing answers, etc., it is to tell you where you stand in the preparation. Since we have a target of letting you solve lakhs of questions, so what we will be doing, that in initial stages you will be assessing yourself, you will be judging yourself, examining yourself, that which are the weak areas where I have to work, where are the areas where you are very good, so that you can micromanage the time, whether you are good in current affairs, whether there are questions like this, consider with reference to, consider following statement, etc. It takes your time, so you have to work on that, and eventually you will start growing. So after every examination, irrespective of whether you have scored 0 out of 100, do a assessment. Why this I could not solve this particular question? Why this question, took too much of time? This is how you will pass through, and eventually you will start realizing that as soon as you have not even finished the question, the answer comes to your mind. Okay? Because UPSC never play cheap tricks. Straightforward question is straightforward answers. Now, coming back to this part, as you can see, we have seen this part. In a molecule of saturated fat, every space of hydrogen is filled. The fat is saturated. It is saturated. In trans fat, this is the structure where the same structure, but at one point the placement is alternate. Okay? And it is said that this should be avoided at every cost. It is not complete, and it is found because of incomplete partial hydrogenation process. Okay, this is the summary that I have made for you. Beyond this, you are not supposed to read anything. That will be pure waste of time. Again, that we have discussed order of utilization. If your body needs energy, first the carbohydrates will be taken. It will be taken because it is easier to break them. Then it will go to fat, then it will go to protein. Now, coming back to this part, talking about water. So again, there was a diagram actually that I wanted to share with you. Just a second. Yes, this is the refined vegetable oil that we use in our home. As you can see, this is the same one. The crude oil that we are purchasing, it is made from the same thing, but to make it edible, to so that we can consume it. As you can see, the process: degumming, deacidification, decolorization, deodorization. That means deodorization means there is no smell. Decolorization, it has no color. And in this particular process, there are several things that is added into it. The very oil that is placed in your kitchen. And what is added? Sulfur containing compounds, phosphoric acid, sulfuric acid, etc. So basically, even this oil is not good for us. But in limited quantity, you can consume it. So basically, the rule of food says whatever you are eating, burn that. By burning means use the natural process. Use the natural process in anthropology. If someone from you have read that we become bipedal, we so even in if you do not have this information, why our structure is like this? Our structure is like this because we are designed to walk. So whatever you are consuming, you can consume anything without hesitation, but burn that calorie. Now you can relate the information. Calorie means the energy that is being uh, extracted from the food that you have just eaten. So if you are not using it, it will start to accumulate in the body. Your job is to burn that, utilize that by doing what? By moving from one place to another, walking, etc., not running. I'll tell you why. Okay? Running is not a good exercise. Running is a sport. Walking is a good exercise for you. Okay? People go to gym, etc. I have my own belief, I have my own opinion that when you put your body under stress, put your body under stress, the kind of muscle development, the kind of burning calorie is not for everyone. What are the effects of that? It becomes relevant in later stages of life. So I'll also cover that part. I just wanted to show you this refined vegetable oil. It goes through various process. Sulfur, etc., is added to it, and then it is made edible that can be consumed. Now let's talk about water. Water. Now our human body. Let's take a safer value that from 65 to 70% of the human body is made up of water. Okay. Now, what we do not know is there are few new diseases that are emerging. So I'll come to different parts, the conventional parts of water, their uses, their what happens if not enough amount of water is there. I'll come to that part. But something new has emerged, and I wanted to tell you that. And one of which is caused because of. Now, if I see your syllabus, you must have heard these two words also. Even though it is not required, but to complete this part, because I have written your syllabus in a page, it is mono-unsaturated and this is poly-unsaturated fats. That's it. MUFA and PUFA. This is multi-unsaturated. There will be, sorry, this is mono-unsaturated. I'm sorry. Mono-unsaturated. And this is polyunsaturated. That's it. Okay, just for my sake, I'm just telling you, there are very low chances that something can be asked from this. And since it is unsaturated, in mono there will be at least, there is one double bond. In poly there will be multiple double bonds. That's it. And then again we'll come back to water. Okay. Now, what are the roles that water plays? Before coming to that, I'll tell you something very interesting. Now, see, the blinking of human eyes, blinking of human eyes has a rate. If you're sitting or if you're walking, you are doing something, that means in normal life, there is a value, there is number of times that you blink your eyes. Okay. And the blinking process, if I draw your eyes, there is a very, very important process that goes when you blink your eyes. What happens? That a watery substance is present in here, just in front of our eyes. Let's say this is your eyeball. I'm not talking about cornea, iris, etc. The eyeball that you see in here. On top of the eyeball is your eyelid. Okay, this is known as eyelid, and the ball, I'm talking about this only. So when you blink your eyes and again open your eyes, this liquid clears your eyeball. So suppose this is your eye, this is your eye, and this is your eyelid. So when you blink, it again provide moisture. So it moisten the eyeball. Again you open it. Again it does that. That means a constant amount of water in the form of moisture is present over your eyeball, which is very necessary. But a new thing has came, and which is known as your smartphones. And UPSC and state PCS examinations are very eager, very eager to ask the question which is caused, which are the ill effects of the smartphone. It has already asked a question in mains where it has asked the question something was something like that. The smartphones have taken the place of cuddling in child. It was in GS paper 4, I think, has taken the, or 1, has taken the place of cuddling. Discuss its cultural impact. This was asked. Again, there will be several, there are several things that will be asked. Remember, why a smartphone addiction is there, I'll tell you. Now see, there were days when the men used to go out to hunt, to build. They used to build their house. They go out and hunt. Now listen to this part very carefully. It will, make you think. And the student who think clears this examination. It's my experience of last 12 to 13 years. Okay? The factual information, you can read it anywhere. But the real job of faculty is to make their students think over a particular topic. So earlier, men used to build something, the house, etc. Women were supposed to take care of the family and the men also. Now he will bring the hunt by killing animals, etc. The female will cook. He will build something. He will hunt. He will guard the family, etc. By doing this, that means it will take some kind of action. Remember, we are talking about something very important, very important. So this is actually the crux of various scientific studies that have been done. So this is the crux of that. So some amount of action is required in here, in hunting, guarding your family from animal, etc., and then building something, not sleeping at night. You are guarding your family. That's one. If an animal comes, you are protecting your family, etc. It needs some kind of action from the men side. Again, female, they have to cook, they have to clean the house, they have to take care of the kids, etc. Again, that needs action. Now, when they do this, there is a chemical. I'm not talking about any particular uh, keyword, just the chemical. There's a chemical which is released in the body, especially in the brain. And the name of that chemical, is dopamine. Let's write it here. Its name is dopamine. Okay. There are other also. You may have heard or may not have heard. Serotonin. These are chemicals which are placed under a category known as hormones. And we'll again talk about hormones also. There is a dedicated chapter called endocrine system. We'll talk about there also. Now what has happened, you will now understand why smartphones are being very causing these problems. In fact, in UK, in China, etc., a limited amount of time has been set for the kids that only smartphone will be given. So why they are taking this much of steps? So what are the? I mean, it's a device. Why government is worried? Why parents are worried, etc. I mean, when I was kid, there was video game also. But remember, in video games also, you have to perform certain action. If it's a car race, you have to win through the race, maybe 4 lap, 3 lap, etc. You have to do something and then you will win. Now, when these are done by men and women, these two chemicals are released in the brain. It gives you, it gives you a sensation of feeling good, feeling good. Now, what has happened without doing anything, when you take out your smartphone and start scrolling the social media, you get the instant dopamine without doing anything. Without doing what you have done, you have just started scrolling. There will be jokes, there will be cats dancing, there will be some information that has no authentic proof that whether that is true or not. There will be games, there will be videos, animated videos, etc. And what it is doing beyond, I mean, uh, it is obviously affecting the eyes, etc. Because there are some light that comes out from the mobile screen that is harmful to our eyes. It is affecting our brain. Why? Because we are getting this without doing anything. So our brain get addicted to it. That means we do not we get this feeling that we do not have to perform anything and we'll get this dopamine. So in newspaper, etc., you may have heard of this term known as cheap dopamine. Cheap dopamine means that you have not done anything yet you are getting the hormone. So what will happen? You will start into falling into the trap of a habit where you want reward without doing anything. This will cause several disorders: ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That means you will not live without your phone. The first thing that you see in the morning is the mobile phone. The last thing that you see before your sleep is the mobile phone. You will get addicted. And this level will keep on rising, on rising. So at first, maybe you get your dopamine maybe in 30 minutes. Next time it will be 1 hour. Next time it will be 2 hours. So we have to save our kids from this. Coming back to in here, we are talking about water. We are talking about the blinking part. So why I stressed upon this is that when you watch your smartphone, your blinking stops. So suppose you were doing something, you were reading a book, you were walking. That means all the normal life activity, etc. It is said that we blink approximately 26 times in a minute without any external pressures. There is no wind, there is no dust, etc. 26 times. So 26 times your eye lubricates the eyeball. The eyelid lubricates. Why? Because we are blinking. But when you use a smartphone, you do not blink. So when you do not blink, it will start to get dry. And there is a word for dryness which is known as zero. So there is a disease also which is caused because of dryness of eye. This is something which is new to this world. But as I said, we'll cover the conventional part also. Dryness of eye, which will eventually lead to eye problems and eventually cause color blindness, loss of sight, etc. Because you may have seen, I have seen small kids with a very thick lens glasses, and it becomes a burden. And remember this fact, this is a scientific fact. Go through any kind of surgery, there is C LASIK also, using laser, etc. You can use glasses, you can eat vitamins, etc. We have seen, and I'll share also the handout where you will get to know that vitamin A is very important for our eyes, carrots are very important for our eyes, etc. Once a person gets spectacles, the glasses, the eyes will never become normal. It's a fact. It's a fact. Because once you get the power, you are advised that you now need lens to read something, irrespective of the power of your glass. The removal of glass will never restore your eyes back to the normal. It's a evolutionary, it's a genetic fact. Because once you get the glasses, the shape of the eye changes and it does not go back to original size. You may be able to read now without glasses, etc., but the change will remain there. Anyways, coming back to this, I'll explain this in detail also, but this was something which may come in your essay part, or maybe you should know. I thought you should know this. Okay? Now, so 65 to 75% of this, our body is made up of water, so obviously water is very important. Now, two things that you should know. This is first. And second is the water provides lubrication. The water provides lubrication of joints. Now, I'm going to tell you something very surprising. Something very surprising. So, lubrication of joint means so let's say knee, wrist, and sorry, elbow, wrist, knee, etc. There is a fluid in it, and it is mostly water, and along with other component also. So lubrication, etc. Even the movement of our head, etc. There is a water in it. So our body has internal mechanism of maintaining a certain amount of water, and that is why it is suggested to keep yourself hydrated. If you keep yourself hydrated, you will be be in a position where there will be several diseases. We'll also see that it helps in constipation also. So there will be several diseases from which you will be safe. So one of which is the role of water is lubrication of joint. Now see, if you are not drinking enough amount of water according to your weight, what your body does, it takes water from your joints. There is something which is known as synovial fluid. You do not have to write this, just for your understanding. Because remember, not everything has to be written. Not everything that I teach you you have to remember to understand the core one. There will be several things that will come along with the actual information. So what body does, it takes the water from your joints because you are not drinking enough water. And then if there is no water in your joint, what will the first symptom? It will start to, pain will be there. It will start to hurt. And there will be pain. And you will complain that I have joint pains. And for joint pain, what you will do, the first thing is that you will start taking medicine. You could have just, made a regular routine of consuming regular water. Making now imagine something that doctors are charging 1,500 to 2,000 rupees to tell you keep yourself hydrated and drink at least 3 to 4 liters per day. Imagine, doctor बता रहा है पानी पियो and he is charging 1,500 2,000 rupees. So what happens? It takes the fluid from joints and the body starts to get, you feel starting, you feel uneasy, you start to feel pain in your joints, etc. The simple solution of that would have been to keep yourself hydrated by drinking water. So this is the body's mechanism of survival. It will not, you know, even for a moment think that, it can cause pain, etc. Now, there is a problem which is known as headache, migraine. Okay, so let's say common headache, because I think most of you once in your lifetime must have gone through headache, because migraine is something different. It affects a particular part of your brain, maybe half side, where it becomes very unbearable to have a constant half side of your brain will be, under constant pain. But here is something that you should know. When you pinch yourself, when you pinch yourself, you feel the pain. Why? Because you have pain. This is important one that I told you, that the dryness of eye, we are talking about uh, lubrication. And in here, that something that may surprise you, that we have something which is known as receptors. That means they receive the signal of pain. They receive the signal of pain. And as soon as it receives the signal of pain, our body feels pain. And human brain have no pain receptor. Then how it is possible that we complain of headache, that we are feeling pain in our head, and inside our head is just one organ, brain. I mean, there is only one organ in here, is the brain, and there is no pain receptor. Then why? Then how it is possible that you can feel headache? It is without any pain receptor, and because of this, open brain surgery can be done. There is a case you can Google. I do not know the details, but I have seen that there is a student who is playing guitar and his brain surgery is going on, obviously with the local anesthesia. But if you do something on brain, the person will not feel anything because there is no pain receptor. So when your body is deprived, you are not consuming enough of water, that will cause some changes in your body, that you will start feeling a kind of heaviness in your head. So you do not need painkiller for your headache. You need just water. Just water. So this is the second important thing. Now third one, again coming back to the conventional one. And as I said, please keep writing the running notes. And this running notes will come very handy. Third one is, we have talked about enzymes also. So let's make it almost all enzymatic activity needs water. As I said, we have roughly 200 plus going reactions going on in the body, and all need enzymes, let's say enzymatic role, and hence water. That means if you have a body which is deprived, a body which does not have enough amount of water, there are reactions that going on. There are reactions that are concurrently going on. Even when you sleep, they will start getting affected. So it is very important for you to keep. This is very important role of water. So third one is enzymatic activity. So what kind of question can be asked from water? Remember, The normal one, it maintains. Another one is maintenance of body temperature. Maintenance of body temperature. Body temperature, this is a very trivial information. I think you should know this information, basic biology, irrespective of whether what is your academic background is. This is something that you should have know, or if you do not know, now you know this information. So maintenance of body temperature is done by water. But there are various activities going on, reactions going on in our body, and all those requires enzymatic one. And all the enzymatic activity, I have used the word almost, but all the enzymatic reactions need water. And if there is not enough water, obviously the body will succumb. The body will get affected because of that. So this is the third one. This is the fourth one. And the fifth one is the most important one. When we say that we have also talked about uh, our ancient information in the medical field that was given by Charak and Shushruth. Charak and Shushruth, that uh, I would say a normal, or let me think for a moment, uh, adequate. Adequate means whatever is required is present. Adequate amount of water is required for bowel movement. Bowel movement. And in constipation, it is the bowel movement that gets stopped. And then from outside, we need, for example, there are several medicines available which are placed under the category of laxative. And eventually, we become addicted to it. So, water is also required to get rid of constipation. It is written in Charak Samhita also, and it is a fact also. So, laxative. Laxative. So, the next one is, it's important for the digestive system, especially it will cause constipation if water is not present. So these are the trivial information, almost all this one. Now, when you eat something, when you have consumed something, so these are the 5 points. These are the 5 points. And we also know that water is a universal solvent. Universal solvent. So it acts as solvent for, I will not go for the food, etc. And I'll be very specific for your question paper. Solvent for many minerals, etc. It is very important for minerals, if they are acting in your body, to have water in adequate amount present in your body. So it's a universal solvent. It acts as solvent for many minerals, etc. This is another one. Let's think of some more. And as I have told you that it is also present It is also present in blood. Remember, the entire blood is not what it seems that it is all blood, as I have told you. Excuse me. As I have told you, that it is not, the entire blood is not full of cell, etc. Around 45% is plasma. And it is also present in blood. So obviously, blood is very important. So it plays a very important role in that also. So I think 7 points are enough for us. One more point. Add. Let's add another point that it helps in removing the toxins from your body. It helps in removing, or you could also say flushing out toxins. Make a star of toxin from the body. Okay, this much information is enough for the water, the role that it plays. Now, talking why I made a star on the toxin, because I want to tell you two things that you must have heard of, and it is written over here. Over here, that in human body, I have written that more than 200 plus reactions are going on. Okay, it could be very important one, small, large, chain reaction, etc. So 200 reaction, if the 200 reactions are going on, there must be some. So this much is water. So the topic of water is done in here. So if 200 reactions are going on, and I'll take that toxin that I have asked you to make a star. Let's talk about what are the toxins actually. And you have heard of it, I'm sure. So when you understand this part, that there are around 200 plus reactions going on in your body, it creates some byproducts also. For example, it will, let's say A plus B is forming C. Maybe a little amount of D is also being made, which is not used in the body. Okay. So there are certain chemicals which are formed because of reactions going inside body, Now pay very important attention, because this is the base of the cosmetic industry, health industry also, and pharma industry also, and yoga, meditation also, this part, and I'll link it to that. Reactions going inside, certain chemicals which are formed because of reactions going on inside, which are not required, which are not required. हमारी बॉडी के लिए वो जरूरी नहीं है. We do not need those one. They are free to go anywhere. We do not need them. Those are called, you can write down further, those are called free radical. Free radical. Now these free radicals are very reactive. These are very reactive. Now what we are talking about? We were talking about the functions of water In one function, we saw that water helps in removing or flushing out, removing toxins from the body. So the question arises from where this toxin came. So again, coming back to this point, that almost in our body there are more than 200 reactions going on, and it is a quite a possibility, and in fact it is true that sometimes reactions produces something which is of not our use. It is made by the reaction, and these are not all but some chemicals like this which are made as a byproduct are formed because of chemical reaction which are toxic in nature, and they are very reactive. And since they are very reactive, what they need, remember which I call the golden rule of science, is that everything needs stability. And let me tell you this, if you see something which is very reactive, that means that is highly unstable. Highly unstable. You must have seen that there are people who are very calm, composed, you know. So why it is that? Because they do not need anything from outside. They can create it by themselves, or if there is something that that they should be worried of, they have already figured it out. So they do not need anything from outside. In the same way, there are certain things that needs something. Now it is the desperation, how desperate they are to get that thing determines how reactive they will be. So everything needs stability, and it will again come again and again. But remember, it is not written in any book. If you Google what is the golden rule of science, you will get to nothing. It is it is I say this after reading science from basic biology to advanced astrophysics and particle physics. I have found that everything needs stability. So these are very reactive. Which one? Free radical. And what they need is electron. There is something called electron, and when we draw this particular bond is actually the sharing of electrons. And the sharing happens only because it is stable also. We'll come to this part again. As I said, this statement will come again and again and again and again, and that is why I call this golden rule. Now this is very reactive. Now this is a challenging one. You may have seen that if you go to a function, let's say a marriage function or maybe any place, you may have seen there are small kids. Since they do not have a very important thing to do, what they do, they start running from here to there because they have found a good open space. They are all very nicely dressed up. So what they will do, they will start running from here to there, and their parents will be worried whether they get stuck somewhere. Maybe their toe will stuck somewhere, then they will fall, etc. And it happens also. Free radicals are those small kids which are running from in a marriage hall, etc., from here and there with no reason at all. And what happens in these free radicals sometimes damages our important chemicals. One of the chemical that you must have, there are several chemicals, but one of the chemical which you must have heard of and is important also is called DNA. That means this free radical has the capacity of hurting our DNA also. It will go to DNA and react with it. Why? Because it is highly reactive, very reactive, and it is dangerous. So we need something. We need someone which can get inside our body and take care of all these free radical. So what we do, we take a certain class of compound which are known as antioxidant. I think now you must have heard of this antioxidant. It it is found in fruits. It is found in certain supplements also. It is found in normal food that is being made. So fruits, food in the form of tablets also. So when we consume this, these are also known as scavengers. These are also known as scavengers. So scavenger means they will eat whatever is left. For example, vultures, hyenas, etc. Those are called scavengers. So they will consume whatever is left, and what is left in here is the free radical. So what they do, they hunt. They get inside the body and they hunt for free radical and neutralize it. So lesser the amount of free radical in our body, the healthier that person will be. So all the stress, all the wrinkles, all the skin issues that are visible in our face, hand, etc., it is mostly because, I'm not generalizing this concept. I mean, I'm not particularly making this as one of the reason, but free radical are the reason why our face displays, I mean, shows and display the first sign that our body needs help. And for that, we need antioxidants. So, whatever seasonal fruits are available in summer, it is mango, watermelon, and there are a few other things, for example, uh, lemon. They provide high amount of antioxidant. So, keep this in your diet and have this information with you for the examination as well. So, what will happen that this will hunt down these antioxidants. Now, how this hunting will happen? What they need? Electron. What antioxidant will do? Will give them electron. It will attain stability. Now it is no longer reactive. It will somehow get outside the body. So this is how entire scheme of thing works. So there are several processes that are going inside our body that we are unaware of, and that is why sometimes we take our life, our body granted. So this is something that you should be aware of. Okay, and sometimes it is not our ignorance. Sometimes it is not our ignorance, but the availability, the economically weaker section, they cannot afford everything. I mean, who could tell them that vitamin E is important for their skin, vitamin A is important for their eyes, etc., when they are not getting food, a normal meal. If they are not getting normal meal, a single meal of a day, how can you add vitamin A, vitamin E? How would you tell that there should be minimum amount of electrolytes, for example, sodium and potassium in their body? It's a joke for us. It's a pure shame for us if we cannot provide food to the citizen of one of the, or maybe the largest democracy of the world. So for that, there are several programs also, one of which is PM Poshan Yojana, PM Poshan, midday meal, etc. What I wanted to tell you that this is a static portion. What I wanted to tell you that what we are doing, we are going for a process known as biofortification. In biofortification, what we do, we add certain component in a particular food without changing the taste, smell, color, odor means smell, etc. Anything like iodized salt. It is found that small kids, pregnant mother, etc., they need iodine. In some parts of India, when it was found that iodine was not available, so what government of India decided that if the salt is present, it will be iodized. So biofortification. There are two names that you should know. is Madhuban Gajar. Madhuban Gajar. It is biofortified. That means we have done the biofortification. And MSE 50, or let me recall, it's a wheat of several food etc. that we have done. The in biotechnology we'll also talk about the golden rice etc., where vitamin A has been added to rice. So here are Madhuban Gajar, Mag etc. It is nothing but the biofortification. Okay, so Madhuban Gajar is for vitamin A, and then it is MAC 40. Yes, it is MAC 4028. Okay, so remember what kind of question can be asked. MAC 4028, sometimes seen in news, is a biofortified wheat. Okay, so government from time to time we have several programs like PM Poshan and National Fund Security Act. So we have a public distribution system. I am sure you know about this PDS, public distribution scheme. Under this, we have PM Poshan, and then National Fund Security Act, Poshan Abhiyan, biofortification, midday meal scheme, etc. So what we are trying to do is providing the right amount of food. Now, what the last thing that I wanted to tell you is that if you are not getting enough amount of proper food is a one thing, but if you are getting some challenges in your health because of trans fat etc., for that government of India has launched certain program especially for trans fats. This is your current affairs also. I'm just initiating this part, trans fat. Make sure whatever you are covering newspaper, because scheme policy programs, they keeps on coming every second or third day. So it's your responsibility to cover the current affairs also, because there is no end to current affairs. Do not cover everything. Just select one publication and follow that. So for trans fat awareness, Government of India has started a program known as Heart Attack Rewind. Heart Attack Rewind. I would suggest that you should write this information. You should write this information. Okay. So what we are doing in the field of awareness of food, etc. Just for example, we just saw glycerides can cause heart attack, etc. So what is Heart Attack Rewind? It's a I- it is it is a announcement. It's an announcement made at public places. Public places, for example, bus stand, railway station, etc. Public places for 30 seconds. For 30 seconds. And what is announced in this 30 second is the awareness related to food. That you should, work out, you should exercise, you should switch to balanced diet, you should include protein, carbohydrate, fat properly, etc. For 30 second, it is an announcement made at public places for 30 second to mm, to make people aware of heart diseases. Okay, so all across India, India, it is done. It is important because it has been not asked heart attack, rewind. So basically, it is related to trans fat because eventually it leads to heart attack, etc. So this basically that now we have covered carbohydrate, protein, fat, water. For minerals that I have told you that there is a static portion that I'll share with you. Your job is I have simplified it to such an extent that you just have to read it once. Okay, so just read it once and all the information will be there. So we have done carbohydrate, important carbohydrate, and then polysaccharide, oligosaccharide, monosaccharide, and then we talked about fat, saturated, unsaturated, MUFA, PUFA, and then we also talked about trans fat, hydrogenation, oxidation. As I said, there will be scientific terms for non-science student and science student also, that they will get the information because I know exactly at which place I have to provide that information in the simplest possible way. And the government initiatives, we also saw the recent one. What are the challenges that we are facing because of the diseases? Xerophthalmia is the name of the disease. Okay. Actually, it is a disease caused by a vitamin A deficiency. Vitamin A deficiency. But using a smartphone without blinking your eyes can also add to several diseases. Okay, so basically, this is what we have in our food part. So there are several guidelines from time to time that are maybe country specific, state specific also, because there are states where we have seen the protein pinch, where the awareness of protein is not very good in North India north part. It is only 2%, whereas Northeast India it is very good. So the strategy could be pro or is specific to a particular region, or could be for entire country. So this basically is your food, nutrition, etc. We'll meet again with a new chapter and new topic, and most probably it will be cell because I have to explain in this context because we have seen the glucose part. So I'll link the glucose and diabetes. That's the first task I want to make you understand, because now you are in a position to fully understand the concept of diabetes. Okay, so we'll meet in the next class. Until then, take care. This is Amit Rishi signing off. Thank you so much.